Hello book fighters, it's Children in YA Lit Month, so I'm going to talk about a book written for adults. Okay, so this week, or today actually, I read The Plucker, which is by a illustrated adult novel by Brome. The reason that I read this book for Children in Young Adult Literature Month is because I remember back when I was at my last university, I would read all the issues of Imagine FX because it is actually the best magazine ever. And I read, I don't remember if it was an interview or what it was, about Brome's book, The Child Thief, which is a takeoff of Peter Pan. And he was talking about how it's really hard to get an illustrated novel for adults published because illustrated books are for children. And his books are very much not for children. So I decided to read it and see what would stand out to me as what makes this different from a children's book. Why is it not for children? And I came up with a few surface things like, well, generally you don't say fuck in a children's book. You also don't threaten to turn someone's penis green. You don't have the book be like the world's greatest horror movie that is what Toy Story 3 would be if Toy Story 3 were a horror movie. And it's creepy and scary, and I read it today in the daylight, and it's so creepy and scary, and now I look at the underneath of my bed very differently. All those are things that you probably wouldn't find in a children's novel, but is that what actually makes it an adult novel? Because it's not even a young adult novel. It's written for adults. It's marketed toward adult readers. And that and Dan's video got me to thinking about what is it that makes YA literature, specifically YA literature. I was talking to a friend of mine this week, and as often happens, we start talking about music and bands we don't like and why we don't like them. And this time, genre categories came up, largely because I'm currently going through my iTunes trying to genre-ize all of my music, which is a terrible thing to put myself through, really. And we were talking about how there are some genres that just don't make sense, like alternative. What is it an alternative to? That says nothing about what the music actually is. It just says alternative, which should say what it isn't, but it really doesn't. So what is this genre for? The other one we were talking about was the indie genre, and how it seems like anything that's popular but is supposed to be more of an underground, I don't know what they're talking about with major label bands that are somehow indie because their lyrics are profound or what. I don't know what's going on there. It confuses me. And one of the things that my friend said when we were talking about the difference between independent band and indie band, and can a non-independent band be an indie band? And one of the things that she said, actually she said this a couple months ago, but it came up again, is independent is a state of being, indie is a state of mind. And I think there's something to that for YA literature. There's sort of a mindset that goes into YA literature that doesn't go into adult literature, is different from what goes into children's literature, and it's sort of an in-between thing. And I feel like, much as I want to say that it's a meaningless category, I feel like there is a meaning there. I mean, yeah, Artemis Fowl and Catcher in the Rye are very different books. I've not read Artemis Fowl, but I know that it's very different from Catcher in the Rye. But at the same time, I can't help but feeling that these books, not even just these specifically, these are the ones I happen to grab, Mockingjay Speak, The Fault in Our Stars, Inkheart, Catcher in the Rye, and The Princess Diaries, all would be marketed as young adult literature. All pretty different books thinking of which, I need to do something comparing Princess Diaries to Catcher in the Rye. Like, that's a thing that needs to happen. Anyway, there's something about them that ties them together, and I can't really put my finger on just what it is, and it's way too hot for me to try and figure it out now. But there's just something that does set them apart, and yeah, I don't know what it is, but I feel like YA isn't just a marketing thing, as much as I do agree that it's kind of a meaningless genre on one hand. On the other hand, I think there is actually something there to them. Although I am all for having books mixed between young adult and adult novels. I also really like that there is a separate category for young adult. Much as that does present a lot of problems. So yeah. Dan, I'll see you on Monday.